We'll get started. People filter in as time goes on, but it's 10 o'clock and that's when class starts. So we'll go ahead and get going. So good morning to those that are on. Thanks for joining. Our last class was a couple of weeks ago and it was about seller listing conversion, getting sellers to want to list their homes with us. So this class is going to be dealing more with dealing with some of the objections that they might have as a result of listing their home, whether it's with you or with somebody else. And what we have found is, and what I've learned over time is that, typical agents work on finding answers to overcome objections. A seller will be sitting across the table from you and they'll start asking questions and you'll deal with them as they come. So versus up front, a successful agent or consultant for that matter will work on preventing objections from ever coming about. So it's very different when you can diffuse a situation before it even becomes a situation versus waiting for something to happen and being reactionary about it. I'll give you an example. So, everything, you basically get to the seller, the listing table, and you have an opinion of value that is so far off the mark from where they want to be, and they basically stop listening. They shut down on everything you have to say. They're not listening to a word that you have to say after you say their home is worth 200 and they've got 400,000 in their mind or 300,000 in their mind. So the key is, putting some realistic expectations on the front end so that when they go to sign the paperwork on the back end, it doesn't come back to bite you. At that point, it's, oh yeah, sure, let's just sign. I'm not even going to read it. I trust you. I know you, blah, 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 blah. Never tell them not to sign, not to read documents, by the way, but it's getting the answers to questions that haven't even come up first, getting them out first. We're going to be dealing with a lot of dialogue in this class. There's going to be some questions, some sample questions that sellers might have for us, and how you should respond to them, or how you can change some words around to make it fit your specific situation. Remember, listing objections, while that's the topic of this class, that's not necessarily the sole purpose of this. You can handle objections in anything, whether it's with a buyer, a seller, a title company, a property management person, a coworker, an agent, whatever it is. It's how to properly deal with people so that everybody still feels like they win and they get what they want. So you can take this information and move it into other aspects of your life. So excellent. What I would like to do is I would like to open up the floor and ask a couple of questions. Maybe you can put in the chat box. But when you're sitting at a listing or a property management listing or whatever, what are some of the objections that people will give you? What are some of the ones? Well, well, Ed, what about blank? Or I don't agree to that. Does anybody have any samples of?
Yeah, I do. I think an important one is always the commission. From a seller objective, it could be a big issue for or getting the listing if they already spoken to someone else and they're just kind of weighing their options of what is going to be their best way to make the most money. How would you handle that?
Exactly. That's an excellent question. And actually, that's one of the ones we will be addressing in this class. And I have a couple of different avenues on how to respond to those types of things. I have some examples, some dialogues, and all of that. So that's very good. Would it surprise you, and it probably wouldn't, that the number one objection is price, listing price? Okay. And, it's annoying because listing a home is not an exact science. Finding that price is not an exact science, and they'll say the same thing to you on an appraisal. Even though the appraisers are God and they know everything, not really. It's an opinion of value is what it is. But the key is that if you have justification and logic on your side and examples, they should be able to back themselves into their own number, which is exactly where you want them to be. Okay, so another example of an objection that we'll be discussing, we've discussed pricing. We will discuss pricing. We're going to discuss condition of the property, because some people see the home in one condition when the reality is a very different condition. We're going to discuss how long have you been in the business? How many homes have you sold? This might be something that comes up. And if you're newer into the business and you don't have the history of, well, I've been in the business for 5 or 10 or 15 years and I've sold 300 homes, that could be an experience. Lack of experience could be an objection to a seller, and there's going to be ways that I can coach you around that as well. Another one is office location. Okay, now we have 5 offices. They might not all be Remax offices, but we have 5 offices. So we can deal with, well, why would I list my home? Because there's a lot of agents that don't want to list in Point Siena, even in our office, because the price points. Okay, well, just because our office is there really doesn't affect, it shouldn't affect anything. Okay, not to mention it's technically Point Siena, but Point Siena is not a city. Kissimmee is. So you can always say, well, we're in Kissimmee, which is true. So there's a lot of different ways that we can take all of that. So definitely start marking in the chat boxes some objections as we go through this that I can circle back around and see how we can diffuse some of these situations. Okay. So number one, to me, is before we even delve into the answers, you've got to have confidence. Okay. When you go out, the best thing you can do, even more important than any paperwork or CMA or whatever it is that you're going to be bringing with somebody, you need to be bringing your confidence. You need to be bringing your smile. Okay. And even if you're not 100% sure about answers or about pricing or anything, if you go out there and you believe what you're saying and blah, 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 most people are going to buy you right then and there. Okay. The people that go and say, well, I got to be honest with you, it was really hard to get comps for this house, or I was unable to find whatever for this house, or whatever, they're dead in the water. You're now showing people that you don't know what you're doing. Okay. Now, honesty is most important, but keep in mind, you don't have to throw yourself under the bus to be honest when you're not telling a lie on the back end. Okay. So, and what I mean by that is, yeah, maybe it is hard to comp the house out. Maybe that is hard, but you don't have to say that. You can come up with them and say, I couldn't find any comps for the house, so here's where I'm leaning. No good. Okay. You want to come out and say, wow, you have a beautiful home. I really like it. It's different than a lot of the other ones that I was able to find. So, I mean, we're going to have to make some adjustments here and there, but don't worry, we got the pricing situation under control. So we probably are going to have a little bit of an issue with the appraisal, just because there's not going to be a whole lot of comps out there, but we'll have enough evidence and justification to show the appraiser how we arrived at this price. Do you see how that's a little bit different than I couldn't find any comps? You want to go with that level of confidence, not arrogance, confidence. There's a difference. So arrogance is, I've sold 30 of these homes. It's not going to be a problem. Don't worry about the comps. Totally different. We don't need that type of attitude. I'd throw you right out if it was me. I don't like that. So excellent. So let's talk about pricing objections. I was just speaking with one of our managers about an hour ago here in the Winter Park office about one of my favorite lines, and I'm sure most of you have heard it already, and that is the power of self-discovery. Okay. Now, if you don't know what the power of self-discovery is, you're going to hear me say it a million times a year. But what that is getting someone to come up with their own conclusion, but you kind of push them into it, but they think it's their conclusion. Okay. So that's the power of self-discovery. When you sell something, it's so much easier to sell something when the person that's buying it thinks that they came up with the idea to buy it, or this is the reason why they're buying it. When in fact, you probably showed them all of the list of logical reasons why, but you never told them to buy it. Okay, and then they're like, oh yeah, I gotta have that. It's the same thing on when you turn on the you can't sleep at 3 o'clock in the morning and you're buying a knife that cuts through a shoe. Okay, I didn't know I needed that, but I must have that. That's the power of self-discovery. Okay, that's what one of my favorite things. And what that does is that gets people to not think about seller's remorse or buyer's remorse because it's their idea. It's when you sell something that they start having that. So keep all of that in mind. Okay. Remember, we sell houses by design, not by accident. So, or coincidence. While this can be very emotional decisions for buyers and sellers, in this case, sellers to sell their home, very often it's the home that they've lived in. Maybe their family has grown up in. Who knows? Maybe they've got on the doorpost the marks of how tall their children got over a certain period. This is their, everything. We have to keep in mind that it's a very emotional decision for many people, but people are coming to us for logic and reason. Okay, maybe they want a buddy too, but they can get a buddy elsewhere. But they need to come to us for what they might know but might not understand. Okay, so like everybody knows deep down in their inside what their home is worth. Okay, they all kind of know what that is, but they won't tell you what that is because it's always worth more money. Okay, because they've got the kid's height chart on the wall. Okay, so you don't go to a doctor. Okay, sick people don't go to the doctor and tell the doctor what they need to get better. They're going for confidence, they're going for guidance, and they're going for their knowledge. That's what we need to get in our minds. People are coming to us for our knowledge, our experience, our guidance. Otherwise, they just go do it on their own. Okay. Now, moving right along. Most sellers feel that their home is worth way more or more than it actually is, and have a hard time justifying the price beyond what they need, what they want, or what they paid. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm going through my pages, and I'm going to start giving you those pointers that I keep referencing. So remember, when a seller comes up to you and says, well, I paid $200 for this home 5 years ago, it's got to be worth $250. Okay, no, it doesn't. It really doesn't. Okay. You have to look at the comparables. You have to look at what everybody else is going to be listing their home for. You have to have printed information that shows why this home is worth this amount of money, regardless of what they paid. Maybe they overpaid. Maybe they underpaid. We don't know. I've actually heard of sellers saying, listed at 200, but I can get you 230. Yeah, but I only paid 80 grand for it. What's the difference? It's unacceptable for you to leave seller's money on the table. You've got to tell them flat out. So we'll get to that. So when you're sitting across from people and you tell them that we've already gone through CMAs and how to price homes and this, that, and the other. But when you're sitting across from them and they tell you, and you basically say, well, what do I've just shown you where the home roughly should be. What price would you like to start out at? Okay. They're going to come back and tell you a higher price sometimes. And what you need to do is respond to them and say, why? We can list it at that price, but why? We need to start asking questions. Once we start asking questions, we can make the proper response. So the key is, number one, never make them feel bad. Number one, stay curious, ask questions. Why do you need to price it at that point? Why do you feel it's worth that amount of money? And some of it might be, well, I've just spent $20,000 in updating the kitchen or the bathrooms or the outside, or I put a new roof on it, or, something like that. So always stay curious, Ask questions. Next, do not be arrogant. Do not respond with, well, you put a new roof on because there was a hole in it. Okay, that's not gonna help you. Okay, it's also not gonna help. Yeah, but your insurance company paid for the new roof because it was storm related. It doesn't really, you didn't actually pay for it. That's arrogant. You don't want to do that. You want to stay calm and keep your emotions out. So rather than coming up with that, when they say, well, yeah, but there's a brand new roof and a new air conditioner, you could say, totally understand. Okay. And that is a benefit. But keep in mind that if there wasn't a new roof, we probably would be pricing the home lower than where I'm coming at right now. We've already taken into account that there's a new roof on the property. We've already taken into account that you've already spent $4,500 on a new air conditioner. Okay. That's already factored into this. Because remember, just because you spent $15,000 on a roof and an AC, it doesn't necessarily mean the appraiser is going to give you that much more value for the home. Okay, they're not going to do it. You put a $30,000 pool in the backyard, the home does not increase in value by $30,000. Okay, keep all of that in mind. That's when you start being logical. Okay, you got to keep calm. You've got to ask questions, stay away from arrogance, and you've got to be proactive. I will tell you, there will come a point, and we're going to explain why. There will come a point where you need to walk away from taking that overpriced listing. Okay, and we're going to circle back around to it. And I can tell you right now, I'm looking at the screen. Okay, we're not going to be walking away from that many. Okay, see who's on there, but they need to understand why it's dangerous for you, and I mean you, the agent, to take an overpriced listing, and more importantly, why it's dangerous for them to allow you to take that overpriced listing. So let me just mute Carol. Okay, so there are a few there are a few key beliefs that I want to go through. Now, there's a list of about 15 key beliefs of pricing, but I want to hit a couple of highlights because some of these sentences really resonated with me. Okay, informed people make intelligent decisions. So when somebody were to come to you and say, I want to list the home for $200,000, but it's really only $175,000, they're not informed. That's not an intelligent decision. It's your duty to inform them of what the market actually is bringing. Okay, and that'll come with the CMA and all of that. Homes sell for two reasons: price and location. Okay, it's not even the condition necessarily. The condition has to match the price. So if it's, a dumb, the price has to match the condition, it'll sell. Okay, so price and location. Keep that in mind when talking to sellers. If their home is out in the sticks and it's a beautiful mansion, it's not going to be worth a beautiful mansion price in the heart of downtown. Okay, got to keep all that in mind. Sellers' needs can never justify value. What does that mean? What that means is their needs. I need to get $30,000 in my pocket in order to buy the next house. That has nothing to do with this house. Okay, this house is not worth $30,000 more. I'm sorry, I understand you want that nicer, better house, but there's a reason why it's nicer and better. It's more expensive. You can't pull something out of this house that you can't put into that one. So keep that in mind. Buyers seldom pay more than market value. Now let's discuss that for a minute. Okay, buyers are going to have an appraisal. Okay, especially in our parts, they're not paying cash for a lot of these things. A lot of these are FHA, VA, conventional loans. The lender requires an appraisal. So the lender is going to tell them how much it's worth. And the appraiser is going to tell them how much the home is worth. And the lender is only going to lend up to that value. So if the home is worth 200 and the contract is for 220 or 210, Okay. That means, very simply put, if the seller doesn't come down to the appraised value, the buyer is going to have to bring cash for the difference. So if they're financing 3.5% of the home, they're going to bring 3.5% plus closing costs plus the spread between the listing price and the value that the appraisal gave. Deal's dead in the water. If they have to bring $5 or $10 or $20,000 extra, there's no deal. People don't have that type of money. Okay. So that's why sellers need to know up front, somebody will have to overpay for your home in order to get it. Are you okay with that? Somebody's going to lose in order for you to win. And chances are is they're not going to lose, which means both parties lose. Okay. Next thing, an effective pricing strategy supports a win-win relationship. That just goes back to right what I just said. Why does somebody have to lose in order for people to win? Okay, that comes with commission, that comes with a buyer overpaying, that comes with a seller overcharging. All of this, it has to be a win-win-win for everybody. Okay, and an effective pricing strategy doesn't create a lose right up front. There are opportunity costs associated with taking overpriced listings. Sellers need to know this. Okay, what are the opportunity costs? You put a home on the market, okay, for $200,000, but it's only worth $175,000. The first couple of weeks, and really only a week or two, is going to be your biggest time to sell that house. Okay, after that, the home starts to go a little market stale. Okay, people are like, what's wrong with that house? Inventory is selling in 30, 45 days. This home has been on the market 60 days. What's wrong with it? You know, and very often there is something wrong with it. It's the price. Okay, but if maybe they're thinking that there's rodents running around, maybe they think there's a leaky pipe. Something's wrong with this house. It's not moving. I'm not interested. Okay, so there is an opportunity cost. For the 30, 60, 90 days that the home is on the market, the seller is paying property taxes, insurance, mortgage payments potentially, utilities. They're losing money on this house every single day it is not sold. So while they might be holding out for an additional $5,000 or $10,000 or whatever it is, they might actually be losing that amount of money or close to it just by not dropping it to the appropriate price to begin with. So the whole comment of, we'll just put it on the market and we'll look at it in 3 or 4 weeks. If it doesn't move, we'll drop it. Okay, you're losing valuable initial time on that property and on that listing. Okay. It is unacceptable to leave sellers' money on the table. So while I'm talking about overpricing, I'm really also talking about underpricing. I have seen, thankfully, none of our agents I've really seen this with, but I have seen some agents skew numbers down, okay, because they're putting their own needs ahead of the sellers. Meaning, if market value is 200, they're going to list it at 195. Okay, well, that doesn't sound like a big loss. Well, yeah, it does. That's $5,000 that the seller might need. They might need to give it to their grandkid. They might need to go buy some. This is real money. And I have seen people slightly underpriced to beat the market. Now, if the seller is okay with it and making an informed decision, that's no problem. But otherwise, it's unacceptable to leave money for the sellers on the table. Remember, they're coming to you to make more money to justify it. Otherwise, they can stick a for sale by owner in the lawn and sell it right then and there real quick because they're beating the market. Okay, so keep all of that in mind. I'm going to take a break here and review some of these questions and then circle back around. Latoria, good morning. My listing issues began after I send a seller report. They don't respond after I send them the report. Hard to convert when they don't answer or respond to email or text. Okay. That is a problem. And first of all, not every owner is going to list with you regardless of what you do. You could be the greatest agent on the planet, okay? But if you've sent out 10 and nobody's coming back to you, or 5 and nobody's coming back to you, There's a reason for that. And part of that reason is you're giving them all the information they need without Latoria. Okay? If you're giving them everything, they're, I'm going to just say, stealing information from you to go take it to somebody else and list with them. Okay, so part of your conversion problem there is possibly giving too much information up front versus asking questions. Remember, if you keep answering, their questions, you know, they're, at some point they're not going to come back to you. Okay, always follow up with a question. It's like when people are looking for a home. Okay, and they say, I'm looking for 123 Main Street. How many bedrooms? It's a 3-bedroom home. Conversation ends. Okay. Is that what you're looking for? Okay. Well, actually, I was hoping for a 4-bedroom. No problem. We have 4 bedrooms. May I ask why you need a 4th bedroom? Is it because you need an office? Is it because you blah, 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 blah? Because remember, if they don't actually need 4 bedrooms, they might only need 3 bedrooms and a loft for an office or whatever. It opens up the door for more questions and more possibilities. So if you're sending, first of all, a 30, 40, 50 page CMA, which they're never going to read. I can promise you they're never going to read it. They're going to go to the bottom line and see what you think that home is worth. You're done. Okay. If it were me, I would follow up with a 3 or a 4 page CMA. And I would follow up and I would say, listen, I just finished preparing the CMA and found some very interesting things. I'd like to set up a time where, you know, social distancing, we can do a Zoom or a phone conversation where I can review the CMA with you. What time works for you? You know, that's following up with them, getting you back in front of them. Don't just send information for it to fall nowhere. Okay. Does that kind of help a little bit? Okay, good. Cool. Rose wrote, yes, I had the same thing. Latoria gave the seller's report, no conversion. Okay, right. So keep all of that in mind. You've got to keep following it up. If you just, it's like sending a letter in the mail. You're not going to get a response. You got to follow up. Hey, did you get my letter? That type of thing. Okay, morning, Lewis. Hello. Happy Tuesday, Jacob. We'll address the question in the chat prior to closing the call. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, moving right along. Did you have a question, Antonio?
Yeah, there's one more question there. Should we suggest to our sellers to purchase an out-of-pocket appraiser before listing it? That's my question.
No. And let me explain why. It's an excellent question and I hate it. Let me explain why. I have dealt with several people that have been told on both the buyer and the seller end, by the way, that they should go get their own appraisal. Okay. And then that's what we'll list the home at. Okay. Do you trust an appraiser or do you trust a realtor's opinion better? I've trusted a realtor's opinion better. And I have seen, I'm going to go out on a limb and say 70 to 80% of the people that get the appraisal up front are dead in the water. It can be overpriced. I know of one, I sold a house in, I was dealing with one of my parents' neighbors. They had a very weird property. They had an appraisal done for, it wasn't in my parents' neighborhood. It was further away. The appraisal was done for $1.15 million. Okay, do you want to know when the home sold? And that's what they listed it at. They sold it 2 years later for $850,000. Do you want to know what I told them when they first put the house on the market? You should put it at $895, 2 years earlier. Okay, keep that in mind. And that's not the first time that that's happened. And it's not the end all be all, but the appraiser, because he was independent, he wasn't working for a bank. He could put any number on that. Okay, there was no loan being associated with it. So I am very much against getting an independent appraiser up front. I don't believe they do a good job. I believe it's a disservice, to be perfectly honest with you. So also it can work the other way. It can go too low. They could say the home is worth, I mean, it's nothing more than a Zillow comp, you know, so my opinion. Good question. Try to stay away from that as much as possible. The only time right now I'm for an independent appraiser is if the first appraisal comes back so far off, and it's not an FHA or a VA, it's just a regular loan or a cash deal, and we're trying to buoy the price. Okay, very good question. Moving right along. Okay. Let's talk about sellers that don't, even after you've presented the CMA and you've justified where you are. Okay, let's talk about a seller that still comes after you with, I still want to price it higher. Okay, so seller wants to disregard competition. Your response could be something on the line, and I have all these dialogues. We can email them out. We can price the home higher, but looking at our competition, there appears to be months of inventory available. Shouldn't we position ourselves to sell within your desired time frame? Now, remember, in prior classes, we've defined what their needs and expectations are. Some people need to sell for a certain amount of money. Some people need to sell by a certain time period. So if we justified their need on they need to be out of this house in 60 days, but we're overpricing the home, it's not going to happen. If you have 2 to 3 months worth of inventory on the market and you're not at that selling price, you're going to be over 2 or 3 months on the market before you hit that price. So, you know, shouldn't we position ourselves to sell within your desired time frame? Per the active summary report pages, the CMA, these homes seem to have the same features and amenities as yours. Why would a buyer want to pay more for your home than they could for the one right next door that's the same home? In many cases, it's the same exact home. These are tract homes. You know, it might have a different front on the home elevation, but the home is the same 3-bedroom, 2-bath, you know, so keep that in mind. What is another objection that we want to overcome? My previous agent told me that this isn't the right time of year to sell the property. Okay, we're entering November, December, January. Historically, these are slow times of year to sell. Well, honestly, it's my experience that homes sell all the time. We live in the state of Florida where we're really not tied to weather. You know, we go from 90 to 50. We don't go from 70 to 0. You know, people leave and come here during the winter to buy homes. So you can't really use that excuse. You always have to go back to, if it's priced right and it's in the right location, it's going to sell at any time of the year. People are buying homes. Our best months in RE/MAX for the past several years have been the last 3 months of business. Okay. So much to the point where Lana, our bookkeeper, came up to me last week and said, Jacob, have you seen the RE/MAX numbers the last quarter? And I go, yeah. She goes, it's incredible. This is during COVID. So you can't listen to, you know, that. I would immediately shoot that down and say, I'm sorry, I respectfully disagree. Homes sell year round. This is not a seasonal location. Everybody moves to Florida. Okay, that's how you get rid of that one. Seller wants to start high on their price. Yeah, let's go ahead and list it for the 200, even though it's worth 175. I know I briefly touched on this. Yeah, let's go ahead and list it. We can price the home that high. However, before making that decision, let's take a look at the people that have tried that approach in this neighborhood and see what the negative consequences were. Okay, that's very simple. Pull up all your expired listings in that area. Okay, you can show them the history of where they started it from, how long it's been on the market, the day that they've dropped it, all of that. You can follow it all the way down. It's called chasing the market. I was taught, I noticed somebody gave me an example back when in 2008, 2009, it's like being on an escalator. Okay, you start your price here, and then it goes down a little, and then it goes down a little, and then it goes down a little. How far are you willing to let it go down before it's finally gone? You know, just start it where it's supposed to go. Okay. Moving right along from there. Big house, small house. This is very interesting. Some people will, I've seen this done. I wasn't prepared for it. Oh, I could do it here. You can draw, well, it's not even going to show up on here anyway. You can literally draw two houses on a sheet of paper. Very simple. Two houses, one this big and one this big. Okay. And put 250,000 on the small house and put 250,000 on the big house. These are the prices we're talking about, okay, to the sellers. Why is someone going to buy your home for 250 when they can get a bigger home, maybe not better, but they can get a bigger home for the same amount of money? Now let's think about it from the agent standpoint. Okay, you've given us, because you know we're very good at what we do, you've given us on the front, we interviewed you, your needs versus your wants, your price points, your thresholds, all of that. You've told us that, you know, from a buyer standpoint, you can only afford $250,000, not only, you can afford $250,000. Okay, so we're putting that in the MLS criteria. That's what the agents on the other end are doing. Okay. Your home at 275 isn't going to show up. Okay, it's not going to be in the results field because the buyer can afford 250,000. Now your home, we all know, is worth $250,000, but you want me to put it at 275. So when they put in their criteria in MLS, your home is going to not exist for all the people that can actually afford it. Now, on the flip side, your home is going to show up for the people that can afford up to the 275 to the 300, okay? But they're going to look at this, the agent's going to look at this and say, why on earth am I going to show this home that's 1,500 square feet when I can show the 1,800 square feet for the same amount of money? I'm going to look like a moron. I'm not going to bring my buyer to that house. It looks like I didn't do my job. I didn't screen the homes properly. Big house versus small house, okay? Keep that in mind. That's another thing that you can go after the seller for a pricing objective. You're going to price your home off the sheets. It's not going to show up in some cases. Now, the 25,000 is a bit extreme, you know, but, you know, if it's 200 to 300 or 200 to 275, that's a big difference. 50 grand, 75 grand is a big difference. And sellers need to understand that, okay? Now, you're not lecturing to them. You're showing them the competition and letting them self-discover why these numbers don't work for their house, okay? These are all different ways to try and talk them into the proper pricings, okay? Any questions about big house versus small house? I kind of like that one. Other pricing challenges. Okay, we've touched on this a little while ago, but let's circle back. We have to have $25,000 to buy the other home. I understand that. Okay, I know you like that other home, but I'm sorry, I can't pull that out of this home for you. Okay, this home is not worth that much more. I know you need that to be where you want to be, but it's just not possible. We need to look at other options for you to get that, okay? Whether it's talking to the lender about increasing the size of their loan and seeing if that's viable, whether it's them selling a piece of property that they might have elsewhere, whether that's asking to borrow some money for from some family, whatever it is, it's not coming from this transaction, okay? You know, you are not going to go and buy a car for more money than it's worth because the seller needs that much more money. It just doesn't happen, okay? So keep that one in mind. This one's a good one. The realtor that I interviewed 10 minutes ago said that he would take the listing at the higher price. Or he agreed with me on my price, okay? This is a little arrogant, but I'm going to say it anyway. Of course he did. He wants the listing. But does he want the listing for the right reasons? And now this is interesting. Does he want the listing because he knows that he can help you develop the win-win relationship? You sell your home, he gets paid? Or does he want it because he wants to leverage your listing to get more listings and more buyers for other properties? Keep that in mind. And what do I mean by that? Okay. When you're an agent and you have nothing going on, you need those listings to make it look like you're busy on your website. Okay. You need the sign in the yard to start getting phone calls. Oh, that house is overpriced, but I have other ones for you. You need your name out there as much as possible. Zillow, because remember, the more houses you have online, the better you look, whether they sell or not, until you start delving into the numbers. So of course, Joe will list that home for what you just discussed. But is he doing it for you or is he doing it for him? Okay. Now, if he's doing it for him, that's a win-lose. Win for Joe, lose for you. Okay. And the truth is that if he was smart about it, he would realize it's a lose-lose because he is investing time, effort, and money into that listing, and it's not going to sell. So you're going to be calling him wondering why it's not selling and demanding it to sell and blah, 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 blah. And all he did was lie up front, or maybe not lie, but stretch the truth just to get that listing, thinking he'd talk you down in a month, that type of thing. That's a very good one. Well, that agent told me he'd get more for me. He can tell you anything he wants. These are the facts. You know, I happen to like that one. Use the word leverage on that, right? Leverage down for a number of reasons. Number one, it makes you sound really smart. Okay, because not everybody says the word leverage. Number two is it makes you feel like you've got also a financial backing in this. It's not just about, leverage it like a seesaw leverage. It gets them knowing that you know what's going on. Okay, leverage is a great word. It can work for lending. It can work for banking. It can work with anything. Leverage is a great word. Any questions about why Joe will take the listing and how to combat that one? Okay. Moving right along from there. If they flat out won't come down, you can walk away from the listing. Okay, but here's how you do it gracefully. Okay, because I will tell you, you guys aren't going to walk away. I know it, especially if you're new into this. But you will start walking away when you take that overpriced listing and it doesn't sell and they call you every other day. How many showings? What's going on? How many open houses? And you know it's not going to go anywhere, okay? You're going to learn real quick why you don't do it. So what you would do is, let's see here. So what you would do in that standpoint is know your walk away price. If you're starting at a point 25, if you look at a percentage, don't look at a dollar figure, but if you look at a 10% over market value, that's not crazy. Okay, I don't love it, but it's not crazy numbers. So if the home is 100,000 and you list it at 110, there's wiggle room there for you to come down. Okay, if the home is 100,000 and they want 150, there is no wiggle room for you to come down. 140, no wiggle room. There is no way you're going to get them to come down that much of a percentage. It's not going to happen. Okay. So here's how I would coach you to deal with that one. I would say, listen, I am not going to be doing you a service. I'm going to be doing you a disservice by taking this listing. Okay. I believe your home currently is worth $100,000. I'd go to 110, even though I don't believe we're going to get it. We'll probably settle somewhere around 100,000. But if Joe told you that he can get you 150, here's what I encourage. I encourage you to go list the home with Joe for 3 months. He's going to want 6 months. Give him 3 months and hold him accountable to that 150. Hold him accountable to that 140, that 130. And when the home expires in 3 months, please remember that I was honest with you and told you exactly where it was going to sell. And guess what? They might. Okay. But when you encourage them to go to your competition, don't tell them to list it for 6 months. You'll never get that deal. Do a short listing, 3 months. Okay. He's not giving you a 3-month price. If inventory is taking 60 to 90 days to sell, there's your 3 months right there if it's priced right. Okay. And I truly believe more often than not, when you tell them just like that, go list with him for 3 months, they'll probably cave. Okay. Or they'll probably start to really think about who's the professional here, you or Joe. Okay. My opinion. That's also the power of self-discovery. Okay. Because remember, we all do better the better the seller does. We do not have flat fees in most of our deals. So if we could list it at 150 and make 50% more money, we're going to do that. Okay, or in this case, 33% more money. We're going to do that. Okay, but we can't. So, any questions about walking away from that? Okay, what if they want to use both another agent and you? Okay, or just oh, you just answered my question. Okay, yeah, if they want to, no, we take exclusive right of sale listing agreements. We don't play around. If they want to, I don't take open listings. It's against our office policy. They either list it with us or they list it with someone else. And I have been in situations where they want it both ways. Not going to happen. All they have to do is play one off the other, say, okay, well, you sell it for 150. He's going to sell it for 160. What do you think is going to happen? Okay. You're never going to close that deal. So don't do an open listing, exclusive right of sale listing agreements. Okay. Here's an interesting one. How would you feel if your home sold tomorrow? Now, we discussed this on the last class. How would you feel if your home sold tomorrow? A lot of people will say you priced it too low, okay? And they're going to have seller's remorse, okay? It's better to discuss this while you're signing the listing agreement than when you're signing the contract for the sale. Remember, we're being proactive, not reactive. We're dealing with objections up front that might not even happen yet or happen at all. So how would you feel about that? Well, you priced it too cheap. Fact is, okay, it's not really. I priced it right where it was supposed to be. Remember, if it was underpriced, you'd probably have multiple offers in a couple of days, not one offer. If I overpriced it, you'd have nothing for weeks or months on end. So would you rather get it done quickly for the most amount of money possible? Or would you rather let it sit on the market and wonder if I've overpriced it? And I have sold homes in one day. I can think of 2 or 3 that sold on the first day for sure. Okay. And most of the sellers always said, we may have priced it a little low, Jake. I don't really think so. And the appraisal generally matches the contract price, verifies that. Yes, Antonios.
Yeah, I just wanted to piggyback off that. I have a situation right now where we put a home on the market at 240,000, and we got a contract within 10 days. So the seller starts talking with her husband, and she's like, "Oh, Antonio, do you think we could have gotten more?" And I'm like, "No, we priced it right where it needed to be to get the offer in the time frame that we did." So now she's kind of second guessing even accepting the offer that we have, because she feels as though she can get more. And I think you elaborated on it, but what would you say would be a good thing to tell that seller at this point in the process?
Okay, good question. So what I have here are a couple of responses to that are more one line versus conceptual, which is what I'm talking about. So, you could basically say, well, would you feel, here's one. Would you feel your needs were any less satisfied if the offer came in on the first day as opposed to the 60th day? So if you got the same offer 2 months later, would you feel like, yeah, that was the right price versus getting it on the first couple of days? Think about it that way, okay? Maybe we're just that good at what we do, between our advertising, between RE/MAX name, between our experience, our location, all of the, everybody thinks that realtors are overpaid. Okay. Everybody thinks that. The fact is that it's not a transactional thing. Okay, it's our history, it's our pool of buyers that we've developed over time, it's our pool of sellers, our contacts, everything that we've invested over the course of years. It's all of those advertising dollars that gets deals done. Okay, yeah, we might make 5, 10, 15, 20 grand a deal, but how much did we really make when you start slicing it all down? Okay, so why on earth, if I've got, remember, you hired the biggest name in the business. Okay, there's a lot of money that comes along with that. Why on earth would I not want to sell it on day 1 versus day 60 for the same amount of money? Okay, why would you not want to go with somebody that's going to get it done wham, bam, boom? Okay, so I would follow it up with that. Would you agree that pricing your home at the appropriate price entry point increases the odds of getting 1 or more offers within your designated time frame? Remember, when we go back to what their needs, wants, and desires are up front was, did they want the maximum amount of money or did they need to be out in a certain period of time? Okay, we priced it to move. We didn't price it to sit. So that's how we justify all of that. So, I'm sorry, I don't believe that I don't believe that if we've done our job that we've underpriced these homes. Okay, and we have documentation that they have viewed. If you notice on our app files, one of the things that I have on there is the CMA, okay, that I want to see. Now, the state doesn't require that, but I want to see a CMA in there or something of the sort, because I want to show you, I want to see that you showed them how you justified that price. Okay. The fact that it's sold that quick has a lot to do with the price and the location. Kudos to you for owning a home that's so desirable. That type of thing. Okay, hopefully that helps. But if you ask that question up front before you get the offer, you've diffused the problem on the back end. So when you get that offer on day 1, day 2, day 3, they're not going to, oh yeah, we did discuss that. We priced it right. Hopefully that helps with that one. Now let's talk about commission. Okay. And Jocelyn, I'm going to single you out for a second because you know what? Sub out commission for management fee. Okay. Sub out commission for management fee. Okay. It's the same thing. Okay. Will you work for less? Or why are you charging 6% or 5%? Joe, remember my good friend Joe, who's going to overprice, is willing to do it for 4.5. Or these ridiculous 100% clubs that are willing to do it for, $3 or whatever it is that it is. Okay, which by the way isn't true. Okay, when you start reading their paperwork, you're going to pay them the lower commission, but then you're responsible for paying the co-broke at a full 3%, plus whatever fees they tag on. They tag on to the back end. It's very easily 4, 5, 6%. They have these advertising fees they don't like to tell you about. Okay, so these are all things. So will you work for less? Because Joe is going to do it for less. Okay, now my response is going to be a little bit arrogant, but it's okay to a certain extent. Okay, there are always cheaper places to fail. Okay, there are always cheaper places to fail. And the truth is that, yeah, you know what? He might be able to do it for less, but how long is it going to stay on the market? Because he's not offering a good co-broke for an agent to make a living off of. How it's going to be overpriced. How much is it going to cost you to wait 6 months to sell this home versus getting it off the books? Don't you want to be with your grandchildren now? That was what you told me. Your whole goal was to get it sold and moved. Okay, there are cheaper places to fail. The other thing and you have to read the room. Okay, that might be a little too harsh for the person that you're sitting across the table from. Another approach you can say is, I got to be honest with you. Put yourself in my position. Would I be a good negotiator for you on getting the max amount of money for your home if I can't even negotiate for myself a proper commission, a proper compensation? Okay, so I'm sorry, I can't do it for less because for several reasons. One is there's a lot that comes behind my name, including this balloon you're looking at right now. Okay, and all the experience. But two, I'll be leaving money on the table for you if I can't even negotiate for me. Okay, that's another way of dealing with it. Okay, does that kind of help some of those questions that might come across? Some people will say, sure, I can reduce it, but what services do you want me to remove to correlate with the compensation? Okay, now what does that mean? What are some examples of that? Okay, do you want me to advertise it do you want me to spend less money advertising your home? Because it's got to come from somewhere. I can't give you Cadillac service on a Yugo budget. Okay, so if you're only telling me I can only list it at 4.5%, I get that. But I need my 2.5% to properly market your property, which means I can only have 2% to give it to the other agent, which means all these other homes that we're justifying prices on, they're all offering 2.5% and 3%, so your home's not going to sell. So there are services that we can reduce in order for you to get where you need to be, but it's not going to be on my end. You know, these are all ways, and you can fine tune some of these in order to fit, you know, the room. Basically, read the room. If it's a sweet couple, you might not want to go with the gun. Okay, you might want to go with a butter knife. Okay, so it you know, that might be another way of doing it. There's another way of doing it, and it's a little bit long of an example, but I'll try and do it briefly. Let's say that you listed it. Some people take $1 bills, 6 $1 bills, and they put it for more visual people. Okay, so put 6 $1 bills on the table, and each dollar bill represents a percentage of the commission. Okay, now it's a little bit so, but it's an interesting way of doing it. 6 $1 bills are on the table. Okay, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, let's talk about how this is going to be divvied up. Okay, well, right now on my listing agreement, 3 of those dollar bills goes to the other agent for showing your property. Okay, so let's take 3 of those dollar bills out of here. Okay, so put them in your pocket. They're gone. So you're left with $3, 3 $1 bills, 3%. Now, out of that, you know, we do have to pay the broker. So, you know, it's not a full one of those dollar bills, but it could be a half of one of those dollar bills or whatever. You could use a full one. You know, you can overinflate it a little bit. Now, you know, Uncle Sam's out there, okay, and they want theirs. So now you've gone from 3 to 2.5 to 2. Then you've got Uncle Sam, which is down, you know, easily one of those dollar bills. You're left with $1 bill. That's 1% for you to feed your children, for you to pay your mortgage, for you to pay your car loan, and for you to advertise this property. So let's be honest, when you see 6 out there, it's not really 6 or 5 or whatever the example that you're using. Okay, you've got to get them down to very basic numbers, not $5,000 $1 bills. You know, that's another way of looking at it. Okay, so keep all of that. Those are good examples of what you can use. People can't see $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 and understand it. Okay, they can see dollars and understand that. Okay, any questions about that example? Okay, don't shoot yourself in the foot by underpricing a listing, especially, and by the way, the people that try to cheat you out of the commissions, because that's what it is, they're going to be the worst people to deal with. They're going to be the most headache. So you're going to be working for less for more difficult people most of the time. Most of the time. Cool. Okay, moving right along. Will you work for less? Will you work for less? No. Will you commission objection? We've dealt with commission concern. Term of listing. Okay, I don't like taking listings less than 6 months. And I want to explain why so that you can explain it to your sellers. Okay, some people will say, I'll give it to you for 3 months. Okay, it's fine when we're referring Joe for overpricing. It's not fine when we take it. Okay, and here's the reason why. Here are the reasons why for that. Number one is, we still advertise in print. A lot of agents don't. Okay. But if we're going to advertise, I want it all over. I want it digital. I want it print. I want everything. So you could literally be 30 to 59 days behind the cycle on getting that home in magazines, depending on when the ad comes out. Okay. You're not reaching full potential of exposure for potentially 30 to 60 days. Okay. Now, granted, it's on MLS, it's on Trulia, it's on Zillow, it's on Redfin, it's on all of that. All of that, it's all on. But you're not getting your full force until that time frame goes. So you're already 30 to 60 days into a listing. Okay. So we want to make sure that we have the full ability to get it out as long and as best as possible. That's number one. Number two is a lot of people don't realize, you might get a deal. Let's say we overprice the house, it's 220 and the appraisal comes in at 175. Okay, but it took 45 days right now to get to that level. We could have sold it on day one. Problem is that closings are taking 45 days right now. So 45 days comes off the market. On day 46, you're listing it and you only have 6 weeks to sell it again. Okay, keep that in mind when you're dealing with a 3-month listing. Okay, you've already shot yourself in the foot of half of it if you sold it on day one. So that we want to be cognizant of. All right, now chances are is the home will sell within the 3-month period. Okay, but remember, they might want to price it outside of the 3-month listing. If inventory is 60 to 90 days, that's your 3 months right there. If they're pricing it higher, you're outside of that sellable probability. So you need longer time to sell it. If they're pricing it at market value, you should be 60 to 90 days before a closing, according to the inventory on the market. If they're pricing it below to get it sold, totally different story. It's all a matter of where they're pricing it is how long you should take that listing. But I've argued for 6 months to a year since I started. Some people do get year-long listings. If you're listing vacant land, do a year. Okay, sometimes it takes a little bit longer. Okay, so Joe can take it for 3 months. The key is hold Joe accountable. All right, moving right along from there. Where is your office located? Our office is located everywhere. That's the answer. Okay, we are all over the world. We go by balloon. We travel by air. Okay, keep this in mind. It doesn't matter where the office is located. All right, we've got agents right now that have done business in Georgia. We have agents that right now are living in Palm Coast and they're still with us and they're still doing business with us. Okay, RE/MAX has 6 or 7 or 8,000 offices worldwide. Nobody knows RE/MAX Pioneer any different than RE/MAX 1 or RE/MAX 200. It's RE/MAX. Okay, it makes no difference where your office is located if you're willing to drive. And I promise you, everybody on this screen is willing to drive a couple of hours for 10 grand. Okay, so the only thing that I discourage is taking a listing outside your market where you don't know. That's the difference. If you will not be doing your seller a proper service, that's a disservice. I would refer it to another agent. Don't be money hungry in that instance. If you feel like you know that area very well, totally different ballgame. Maybe you used to live there. Maybe you do business in that area. No problem. But if you're just doing it to make a couple of bucks, that's going to come back and bite you. You're going to have problems with appraisal, with inspections, with people going to see it, with it being in the right MLS. Might not even show up if you're an MFR and they're in a totally different MLS. That's when you don't take those. but there should be no reason why an office in Kissimmee can't sell a $600,000 or $700,000 home in Winter Park. I do it all the time. Okay, your office is mobile, app files, mobile, MLS, mobile, closings, mobile. We sell all over the world at properties in Kissimmee. Okay, we send it all out. So don't let the office location bug you whatsoever. Has nothing to do with it. I could argue it the other way, but for the purposes of this, it does. It doesn't. Friendship objection. Well, thank you so much, but my friend is going to sell the home. Here's how you deal with that. No problem. I totally understand that. But is your friend a full-time realtor, or do they do this on the part-time, like nights and weekends type of thing? Because a lot of agents do that. Because when you get me, you get all of me. You don't get part of me. Okay. The other thing is look, I totally respect that, but do you really want your friends or family knowing your business? A lot of times people don't want their cousins knowing their financial backing. Next thing you know, they're going to hit you up for cash. Okay. Think about it. You just sold a home for 200 grand. And now all of a sudden, you know how much they got. There could be a 50, 60, 80, $200,000 windfall there.
I'm going to need a loan.
Yep. Going to need a loan. Going to need a loan. Okay. That's something a lot of people don't want to have. Okay. So totally understand they're in the business. They want to help them out, this, that, and the other. But remember, you want a full-time professional that doesn't care about your personal business. It's never going to come back and bite you. Okay. Very interesting. Most people will not go to a doctor that's their friend. They don't want people knowing, and you can use that example. Okay. That's a good example. Next, experience objection. This is, I think, where we're going to finish off. Some people will say, how long have you been in business for? How long have you been doing this for? How many homes have you sold? Have you sold homes like this before? Mine's a little bit different. Are you sure you're capable of doing it? My home is about 45 minutes from your office. Is that something that you're willing to? All of these types of things, this is how you respond, okay? If you don't have your own numbers, use my numbers. They're our numbers. That's why you all are on my Zillow team. That's why you're all on my 5 Street team, okay? You might have sold 2 or 3 or no homes, but guess what? We've sold over 130 homes this year, okay? We have sold over 130 homes. Okay. Well, but Rose, you've only been in the business. You've only been selling real estate for 3 months. No, that's not true. Okay. You've been licensed for several years. Okay. You have that backing. Nobody's going to say, how many homes have you sold in the last 3 weeks? Nobody's going to say that. You've been in real estate for years. Okay. And even if you haven't been in real estate, you could say, let's say that you used to sell timeshares, or let's say you used to sell ties, whatever. I've been in sales for many years. I know how to sell these things. That's not a problem. Okay. Plus, I have a broker that is right with me on this, who's been doing this since he was a kid. I used to go show homes with my dad when I was a little kid. And I mean like 5. I think he brought me to kind of close the deal. I was very cute. So anyhow, they would sign right then and there. So the point is that skew it a little bit without lying. Our office has sold hundreds. Okay. Our team, you're part of a team. Our team has been in this since 1972. That's almost 50 years. Okay. In Central Florida real estate. You go on our websites, I'm gloating and all over the place about it. Okay. Put that behind the experience situation. And I can promise you, anybody that needs help with coming up with a quick response, just call me and I can probably come up with one in about 8 seconds that you could tell people. Just tell me your quick background and I can easily give you one. Okay. That you just have to practice and rattle it off with confidence and objection handled. Okay, so that takes care of that. Are there any questions, comments, concerns about this or anything that we've discussed on today's class? Let's see here. Know your worth. I seen brokerage listing commission for 1.5%, but outrageous company service, misleading. It might not be misleading if they go through the paperwork on the back end with them. The problem is it's misleading if they don't review it with them before closing. Okay, 1.5%. These commissions help you sell, assist to sell, sell by owner. All of these things will close up shop the moment the market takes a dip, because they can't afford to list property that way. And you can always combat that with, once, there's cheaper places to fail. Two, how long have they been in business for? Please ask. Okay. Do they have a brick and mortar office? Please ask, because I can promise you they don't. Okay. They're out of business before they're in business, because they have no overhead. If they're charging that percentage, they have no overhead and no stability down the line. The moment that they can't sell a home in 30 days, they're out of business. There's no other money otherwise. There's no advertising dollars. My broker count is, oh, okay. Thank you. All right. So anyhow, if you have any questions, email me, call me, text me. I will be on the road tomorrow. I'm finishing up some business out in North Carolina. I had to go out there a few times. I'm finishing it up this weekend. So call, email, text. I'm available. Otherwise, have a successful day, everyone.